Hi there. In this video, we are going to see what we can do with postman.setNextRequest. So when you have a collection and you see request in the order, let's say request 1 is at the top, followed by request 2, 3, and 4, right? When you execute that collection with the help of collection runner or maybe with Newman, right? The order of execution is it starts with request 1, right? Followed by 2, 3, and 4, right? So now what if there's a requirement that you want to control that. For example, you want to execute 1, 4, and 3, and then in other case you want to execute 2, 3, 1, 4, right? How can we achieve that, right? So we are going to see that in this example, how can we achieve that. So what I've done is I have created this collection, and in this collection I've created one more kind of dummy request, right, which I'm calling that as switch. So what will happen is, so switch will control what request would be executed next. So in this case request 1 would be executed, then the control goes to switch, and switch decide which request I have to execute next. Same way, and 4 is executed, request again goes to switch, and switch decides that now I have to execute request number 3. All right. So switch is controlling what is the next request that will be executed. All right. So this is the switch, and I'll first execute this, and we'll see. So since there are multiple iterations, right? In the example, we saw that this is first iteration, this is second iteration, right? So we are going to control this through an external, either CSV file or JSON file. All right. So let me select, I've created a switch.json file, and if I preview it, so you could see that there's a switch variable in that. This is the order that I've defined for first iteration, request 1 followed by 2 and finally 4. In the other one, it is going to be request 2, 4, 3, and 1. Okay, so let's execute that and see if there are 2 iterations. So you see, right? So this is second iteration. All right, so let's read that. So what's happening first is control goes to switch, all right, and then request 1 is executed. Control again comes back to switch, request 2 is executed, then again comes back to switch and request 4 is executed, and then again to switch. But in our file, so this is our JSON file, there is nothing after request 4, right? So first iteration is considered to be completed, and then it moves on to request 2, and the same story is repeated there as well. So switch request 2, so if you see here, switch request 2, switch request 4, switch request 3, switch request 1. Okay, so however, if you look at this, the switch statement is getting repeated every time. So do we have a better solution? Yes, we have. And whatever code that I've written, so let's understand the code first, and then we'll talk about a better solution. So let's see how am I switching to the switch from these requests. So in the test, there's a simple line that I've written, postman.setNextRequest to switch. So it goes to this particular request, and in every request, this is what I've done. Okay, all right. So then we come to switch and see what we are doing here. So again, I'm making use of lodash library, external library provided by Postman. All right, and I've created a function this time, and we have done something similar in one of the video. All right, I didn't want to play that. So it was reading data from script, postman data from script. So we have done something similar. It's just a kind of extension of it. And so this was that example I was referring to. So here we are doing something similar. So this is the data that we are passing. So we are running this request multiple times from this data, and right, and we are reading data from the environment variable, then we are setting back, so we use the shift operation to read one value, pass it here, and remaining value we were saving into environment variables, right? And then in the test we are checking whether there are more values available in that array, and if we found to be, then we execute the same request again. But this time, instead of executing this request, what we are doing is we are going back to the switch, and switch is deciding what's the next request that should be executed, right? And instead of having the data in the pre request script section, we are you know getting the data from the external JSON file, right? So that's a slight difference there. However, let's move to our particular case, and in switch, what are we doing? So in the test, so I've created a function, and this function is going to return the name of the request. All right. So what request should be executed next? And again, the concept is very much simple. What we are doing is we are checking whether there is any remaining request variable available in the environment section. And if it is there, we are fetching that, right, and storing that in the request variable. For the first time when we execute it, right, there will not be any variable, and in the second or third iterations when you run this collection, right, so the variable would be there but it would be empty, right? So we are also checking for the condition. If the variable is undefined, then we are reading the value, this value, from this file, right, and using that. So we are initiating this variable with that value from the file, right? Then what we are doing next, pretty much same what we did into the other video. We are fetching the first value, right, and putting it into next request, right? So let's say there are three values, right? When you fetch all the three values and you try the shift operation fourth time, then what you get back is undefined, right? So what we are checking is, if the value is undefined, we are setting it to uh, uh, empty, right? So we are unsetting the remaining request and returning null this time, so that we can move on to the next iteration. Or which iteration? This one. Okay, so there are two iterations in this case, right? So once all these are done, we are returning null so that we can move on with this request. Okay, else what we are doing is we are setting, so there are three values in the first case, read one and store the remaining two into the environment variable and return the value that we have fetched, right? So this is all we are doing in this case, right? And it is working for us. And then postman.setNextRequest, we are calling this particular function. All right, that's simple. That's very simple, right? Now, the problem with this approach is, of course, we have seen that. What is the problem? The problem is that switch set statement is getting executed every time. Maybe a problem, may not be a problem, right? So if you're fine with this, if you can set up a dummy request, right, just as a router or just as a switch, right, it's all fine. However, let's say if there's a requirement, or if you're lucky enough that the first request that you have to initiate always is your login, right? So then you can get rid of even this switch statement, as you could see in this particular example. So what I've done is, from all these requests, I've taken this thing out, right, and lifted the test case up to the collection level. So same thing is written here. All right, so now you will not see switch in the collection runner. All right, so if we run this and go here, run, and use the same file. Now the thing is, and this with this approach also there's a problem, but let's execute that and check that out. So if we do that, right, so request one is executed, and then again request one is executed, because the first request will always get executed and we have no control over it. The control postman works it this way, that your first request would be executed, and then you can take the control of what should happen next. So in the case one, we had 1, 2, and 4. However, we still had to go to request 1 and then we can control it, right? In the other one, again, we had to go to request 1 and then we control 2, 4, 3, 1, right? And this is what we have here, 2, 4, 3, 1. All right. Uh, so this is how you can create advanced workflows, uh, provided either you have to make multiple copies of your same request, or you have to bear this much, right? What you can also do is you can set up mock requests, right? Or you can use some postman.eco service kind of which is doing nothing as such, right? And you can use this. And this idea, this concept is influenced by a video on YouTube. So I'm going to put the link of that, and that guy has explained is much better than me. So thank you for watching. Thank you so much.